episode 77. But you said Slughorn had been planning to give that bottle to Dumbledore for Christmas, Ginny reminded him. So the poisoner could just as easily have been after Dumbledore.
Then the poisoner didn't know Slughorn very well,
said Hermione, speaking for the first time in hours and sounding as though she had a bad head cold.
Anyone who knew Slughorn would have known there was a good chance he'd keep something that tasty for himself.
Hermione, croaked Ron unexpectedly from between them. They all fell silent, watching him anxiously, but after muttering incomprehensibly for a moment, he merely started snoring. The dormitory doors flew open, making them all jump. Hagrid came striding toward them, his hair rain-flecked, his bearskin coat flapping behind him, a crossbow in his hand, leaving a trail of muddy, dolphin-sized footprints all over the floor.
"Been in the forest all day," he panted. "Aragog's worst. I've been reading to him. Didn't get up to dinner till just now, and then Professor Sprout told me about Ron. How is he?"
"Not bad," said Harry. "They say he'll be okay." "No more than 6 visitors at a time," said Madame Pomfrey, hurrying out of her office.
"Hagrid makes 6,
George pointed out.
"Oh, yes,"
said Madame Pomfrey, who seemed to have been counting Hagrid as several people due to his vastness. To cover her confusion, she hurried off to clear up his muddy footprints with her wand.
"I don't believe this," said Hagrid
hoarsely, shaking his great shaggy head as he stared down at Ron.
"Just don't believe it. Look at him lying there. Who want to hurt him, eh?"
"That's just what we were discussing," said Harry. "We don't know."
"Someone couldn't have a grudge against the Gryffindor Quidditch team, could they?"
said Hagrid anxiously.
"First Katie, now Ron."
"I can't see anyone trying to bump off a Quidditch team," said George. "Wood might have done the Slytherins if he could have got away with it," said Fred fairly.
"Well, I don't think it's Quidditch, but I think there's a connection between the attacks," said Hermione quietly.
"How do you work that out?" asked Fred.
"Well, for one thing, they both ought to have been fatal in word, although that was pure luck. And for another, neither the poison nor the necklace seems to have reached the person who was supposed to be killed. Of course," she added broodingly, "that makes the person behind this even more dangerous in a way, because they don't seem to care how many people they finish off before they actually reach their victim."
Before anybody could respond to this ominous pronouncement, the dormitory doors opened again, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley hurried up the ward. They had done no more than satisfy themselves that Ron would make a full recovery on their last visit to the ward. Now Mrs. Weasley seized hold of Harry and hugged him very tightly. "Dumbledore's told us how you saved him with the bezoar," she sobbed. "Oh, Harry, what can we say? You saved Ginny, you saved Arthur, now you've saved Ron." "Don't be. I didn't," muttered Harry awkwardly. "Half our family does seem to owe you their lives, now I stop and think about it," Mr. Weasley said in a constricted voice. "Well, all I can say is that it was a lucky day for the Weasleys when Ron decided to sit in your compartment on the Hogwarts Express, Harry." Harry could not think of any reply to this, and was almost glad when Madame Pomfrey reminded them there were only supposed to be 6 visitors around Ron's bed. He and Hermione rose at once to leave, and Hagrid decided to go with them, leaving Ron with his family.
"It's terrible,"
growled Hagrid into his beard, as the 3 of them walked back along the corridor to the marble staircase.
"All this new security and kids are still getting hurt. Dumbledore's worried sick. He don't say much, but I can tell."
"Hasn't he got any ideas, Hagrid?" asked Hermione desperately.
"I expect he's got hundreds of ideas, brain like his," said Hagrid. "But he doesn't know who sent that necklace, nor put poison in that wine, or they'd have been caught, wouldn't they? What worries me," said Hagrid, lowering his voice and glancing over his shoulder. Harry, for good measure, checked the ceiling for Peeves. How long Hogwarts can stay open if kids are being attacked? Chamber of Secrets all over again, isn't it? There'll be panic. More parents taking their kids out of school, and next thing you know, the Board of Governors.
Hagrid stopped talking as the ghost of a long-haired woman drifted serenely past, then resumed in a hoarse whisper.
The Board of Governors will be talking about shutting up for good. Surely not, said Hermione, looking worried. Gotta see it from their point of view, said Hagrid heavily. I mean, it's always been a bit of a risk sending your kid to Hogwarts, hasn't it? You expect accidents, don't you, with hundreds of underage wizards all locked up together? But attempted murder, that's different. It's no wonder Dumbledore's angry with Snape.
Hagrid stopped in his tracks, a familiar, guilty expression on what was visible of his face above his tangled black beard. "What?" said Harry quickly. "Dumbledore's angry with Snape?"
I never said that,
said Hagrid, though his look of panic could not have been a bigger giveaway.
Oh, look at the time. It's getting on for midnight. I need to...
"Hagrid, why is Dumbledore angry with Snape?" Harry asked, loudly.
Shh,
said Hagrid, looking both nervous and angry.
Don't shout stuff like that, Harry. Do you want me to lose me job? And I don't suppose you'd care, would you not? Not now you're giving up caring magical creatures.
"Don't try to make me feel guilty. It won't work," said Harry, forcefully. "What's Snape done?"
I don't know, Harry. I shouldn't have heard it at all. I was coming out to the forest the other evening and I overheard him talking. Arguing. Didn't like to draw attention to myself, so I sort of skulked and tried not to listen, but it was a heated discussion, and it weren't easy to block it out.
"Well," Harry urged him as Hagrid shuffled his enormous feet uneasily.
I just heard Snape saying Dumbledore took too much for granted, and maybe Snape, didn't want to do it anymore.
"Do what?"
I dunno, Harry. It sounded like Snape was feeling a bit overworked, that's all. Anyway, Dumbledore told him flat out that he'd agreed to do it and that was all there was to it. Pretty firm with him. And then he said something about Snape making investigations in his house in Slytherin. There's nothing strange about that,
Hagrid added hastily as Harry and Hermione exchanged looks full of meaning.
All the heads of houses were asked to look into that necklace business.
"Yeah, but Dumbledore's not having rows with the rest of 'em, is he?" said Harry.
Look.
Hagrid twisted his crossbow uncomfortably in his hands. There was a loud splintering sound, and it snapped in two.
I know what you like about Snape, Harry, and I don't want you to go reading more into this than there is. Look out, said Hermione tersely.
They turned just in time to see the shadow of Argus Filch looming over the wall behind them before the man himself turned the corner, hunchbacked, his jowls a-quiver.
"Oh," he wheezed, "out of bed so late, this'll mean detention." "Now it won't, Filch," said Hagrid shortly. "They're with me, aren't they?" "And what difference does that make?" asked Filch obnoxiously. "I'm a ruddy teacher, aren't I, you snake and squib?" said Hagrid, firing up at once.
There was a nasty hissing noise as Filch swelled with fury. Mrs. Norris had arrived, unseen, and was twisting herself sinuously around Filch's skinny ankles.
"Get going," said Hagrid out of the corner of his mouth.
Harry did not need telling twice. He and Hermione both hurried off. Hagrid's and Filch's raised voices echoed behind them as they ran. They passed Peeves near the turning into Gryffindor Tower, but he was streaking happily toward the source of the yelling, cackling and calling,
"Where there's strife and where there's trouble, call on Peevesy, he'll make double."
The fat lady was snoozing and not pleased to be woken, but swung forward grumpily to allow them to clamber into the mercifully peaceful and empty common room. It did not seem that people knew about Ron yet. Harry was very relieved.